Hello, thank you for tuning in to Geoeconomic Insight. I'm Andrew Capistrano, a visiting research fellow here at the Institute of Geoeconomics. And with the second annual Geoeconomic Summit less than 2 weeks away, I'm excited to be joined by our director, Professor Kazuto Suzuki. This year's theme is the changing dynamics of statecraft, which is a very important theme. Some of the morning events on October 28th will be live streamed on our YouTube channel, so we encourage you to tune in, starting at 9 o'clock with Professor Suzuki's opening remarks, and followed by a keynote speech from Dr. Kenneth Weinstein, Japan Chair of the Hudson Institute, and then a dialogue between Dr. Weinstein and Professor Ken Jimbo, President of the Asia-Pacific Initiative and Managing Director of the International House of Japan. Following that will be a morning fireside chat with Wendy Cutler. She's the Senior Vice President at the Asia Society Policy Institute and was previously Deputy Secretary of State under the Biden administration. Following that, we'll have our first panel. That will be also live streamed from 10:40 in the morning. The EU plus CPTPP, Europe in the Age of the Indo-Pacific. And the last live stream event will be from 1 o'clock, a fireside chat between Professor Suzuki, David Feith, who was formerly in the Trump administration, and Mr. Tarun Chabara, Head of National Security Policy at Anthropic and formerly with the Biden administration. I thought it would be a great idea to just talk about the importance of the changing dynamics of statecraft here in 2025. So maybe we'll start with the first panel, the EU plus CPTPP.
Right.
As we see the kind of international trading system disrupted by the US-China trade war, which escalated this past weekend, I think that there are many nations that are not wanting to choose sides necessarily. So there may be some impetus to go to one side or the other, but there's also a desire to hold on to these international trade rules and perhaps forming another pole. So
right.
I think the EU-CPTPP relationship will be an important one. And perhaps you could elaborate on this dynamic.
Right. So the dynamics is that on the one hand, the United States and China is now putting the priority on their self-interest. United States, of course, is putting a higher tariff outside of the WTO rules, and to protect and promote the investment in the United States to re-establishing or rebuilding the manufacturing capabilities, building its own autonomous capabilities, and also increasing the revenue, the tariff revenue. Whereas in China, there is a whole different dynamics, because of the economic downturns and the real estate crisis, the questions of the over-competition, over-production, and this over-capacity issue is now creating the disruption of the international market by exporting the cheaper Chinese goods, which are going beyond the domestic demand. And now the United States blocking these Chinese products coming into a U.S. market, so the Chinese product is diverted to the different market. So there are tendencies that the different states, including Japan and the EU, or any other CPTPP countries, to increase the tariff barriers to protect their own industry from the Chinese cheaper goods. But to what extent we can allow to do that, or how much we can have a network of trade which is based on the free trade and rule-based trade order to negotiate with United States and China, and to establish some sort of a legitimacy of protecting their own market. So the alliance between the EU, which is a market of 27 countries, and CPTPP, which is the free trade agreement with 12 countries. And I think combining the EU and the CPTPP will create a much stronger and a bigger market that is comparable to the American market or even the Chinese ones. So I think creating this link between the EU and the CPTPP will provide some sort of an image that these countries outside of the United States and China will gather together to create the sphere where the rule-based international order will remain to be intact and more stability and predictability in trade. So this is the understanding of this context, and we are very lucky to invite Ambassador Koji Tsuruoka, who was the chief negotiator on the CPTPP. Well, he was a negotiator of the TPP process, and he was a former diplomat, but he was deeply engaged in the economic arrangement and negotiation on the free trade agreements. Also, he was assigned as the ambassador to Britain, so he knows the UK's position vis-a-vis EU and the UK as a member of the CPTPP. So this is one of the highlight of the panel that we have the Ambassador Tsuruoka. Also, we have Ambassador Michael right here, who was the ambassador to Japan and ambassador to South Korea of the European Union. So he is also very much involved in the EU. Japan or EU-Asia relationship. So he knows very well about both regions, and he is the perfect person to talk about the possibility and the potential of the EU-CPTPP arrangement. And also we have the Mr. Jan-Hein Kasselfol. He's coming from Klikendal Institute of Netherlands. He's also a friend of us who is an expert on the trade issue based in the EU. So he's very much knowledgeable person to talk about the EU's position on trade with Asia.
That's a great lineup, an excellent panel. It'll be moderated by our own Dr. Suzuki, not you, the other one, Leo-san, who's a senior research fellow here at the Institute. And you mentioned Ambassador Tsuruoka, which is he was the ambassador during the time I lived in London, and so that was during Brexit. And so I find the idea of EU-CPTPP, it kind of links in with these ideas of EU and India trade agreement that they're pressing forward to. These are two kind of parallel strands of EU diplomacy. And when you see the relationship that Britain has managed to get the trade deal with India, do you think there's a possibility for India in this larger EU-CPTPP framework, should it emerge?
Yeah, I think India tends to have more... India prefers to do the bilateral trade agreement rather than the multilateral ones. So one of the point is that India left the RCEP, the Regional Cooperation Economic Partnership, which is basically the ASEAN 10 plus the ASEAN plus 6, which include 10 ASEAN countries and Japan, South Korea, China, and Australia, New Zealand, and India. India did not want to be involved in this multilateral agreement, partially because of the conflict with China, but also India has its own domestic issues India's history of free trade is rather short. India's liberalization of the trade was starting from 1991. So there are still, a lot of remains of the traditional protectionist measures here and there, and India doesn't want to get rid of them. So they are, the Indians rather like to have this bilateral negotiation to protect there's some of their industries while they want to open up more to the international market. Probably it's not the case that India will join CPTPP anytime soon, but I think there will be more opportunities for India to negotiate individually with other countries.
So yeah, the reason I'm interested about India is because I wonder if in an EU-CPTPP conglomeration, would there be adequate places to absorb the supply? In other words, where would the most of the demand come from? And I feel like India could really play a key role in that framework of creating sort of rules-based trading structure, but also making sure that there's opportunities for demand to be absorbed.
Right. So India is on the verge of this, balance between the rule-based international order and its own, the protectionist measures. So I do agree that India plays a significant role in this, let's say, dynamics, particularly facing with the size of the U.S.-China market.
Yeah.
I think having India in this EU-CPTPP framework will create a huge weight in this balance. But still, India has its own problem. Probably it takes more time for India to be able to negotiate multilaterally, and meanwhile, I think India is not against the rule-based international order. Therefore, India wants to gradually changing its economic nature, and I think as a result of the economic growth, there will be much less necessity to protect a certain industry. So probably, as time goes by, India may find the more opportunities to join CPTPP or the wider EU-CPTPP framework, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to this panel because I see the whole EU-CPTPP dynamic to be one of the most interesting things going on right now.
Right.
They are kind of compatible in terms of high standards, in terms of the dedication to the rules-based system.
Right.
And I think that this is a point to watch, especially given what's the topic of the next panel, which is dealing with the America First United States.
Right.
Because in a way, you could argue that, of course, China has its overcapacity. This motivated Trump's tariffs. But the moment that we're in right now was sparked by Trump's full-on rejection of the global trading system with the Liberation Day tariffs. So dealing with the American First United States is something that Japan, Europe, India, all countries are dealing with in their own way.
Right.
And so what do you think that this panel will reveal about the path going forward into 2025 and 26?
Right. Well, unfortunately, the panel there are the only available online available panel is the first
That's
one
correct,
on the
yes.
CPTPP and EU. The rest of the panel are not, but I am very happy to discuss about this. The panel session 2A is about the dealing with America First United States. Everyone has to deal with the United States one way or another. And we are inviting Mr. Sugiev, who is Director of the Economic Security Policy Bureau in Security Policy Division in Ministry of Trade, Economy and Industry in Japan. We have Hosuki Makiyama, who is a very outspoken, interesting person to talk to. He's a fellow of London School of Economics, and he has a lot to say from the British point of view. And we also have Saori Tsuiki, who is Mizuho Mizuho Research and Technology. She's an economist, but she's also looking at from the economic point of view on the Japanese reactions to the impact of dealing with Trump policies, and she will discuss about Japanese economy after the trade and investment agreement. And also we have Mir Sharma, who is director of the Overseas Research Observer Research Foundation of India. He's a good friend of us. He's a political economist in India, and he is going to talk about how does it mean to have the 50% of tariff from United States. So India, Japan, and Europe has different ways of dealing with dealing with the United States, and probably we are also seeing what does it mean for the America first. The America first means, is it the American interest first, or American technology first, or something else? So I think this is an interesting panel to discuss not just the economic effect of the Trump 2.0 trade policy, but also we can identify what kind of nature that the United States has today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think it couldn't be more important. My own personal view was I thought the Liberation Day tariffs really didn't distinguish between adversaries and allies, or between surplus countries and deficit countries. And it may have been a mistake that possibly the Trump administration is learning. This is World Bank IMF week in DC. And just yesterday, Scott Bessent gave a speech where he has been appealing to allies in a way that we haven't really seen so much since the kind of bilateral nature of the Liberation Day tariffs. So do you think that, we've seen Trump change his opinion on Putin. We've seen him change his opinion on Netanyahu. Do you think it's a possibility that Trump maybe is changing his opinion on allies? Is he realizing the strength and that the U.S. relationships with its longstanding allies and democracies will have in the long-term economic struggle against China?
Well, I think it is, there is to a certain extent, a distinction between the security allies and the economic partnership. I think from the Trump's view on the allies on the economic side is not an ally. I mean, these are the sort of countries ripping off from the United States anyway. So I think there is a separation of the security affairs and economic affairs. And I think, if you look at the European front, the NATO has decided to invest 5% of the GDP, 3.5 on the direct investment, and the 1.5 for the related infrastructure. This made Trump happy, and now there is an agreement for the 16 countries of NATO is going to pay for the armaments that is procured from the United States and ship it to Ukraine. So from Trump's point of view, allies is the one who pays. So that's the basic idea. So that does not necessarily mean that, the United States is creating an ally and working together to compete with China. But, the allies are supposed to pay for United States while, helping United States compete with China. So that's basically the picture that he himself had as an America first, and the, competing against China, and how to make a relationship with allies.
That's an excellent point. The administration loves to say America first doesn't mean America alone, but we still have yet to see exactly how that operates in practice. But sitting here in Tokyo, speaking of allies, I wonder what you think will happen with the U.S.-Japan alliance. Who knows by the time this video is released, but at this point it seems that Takaichi's road to the prime ministership is not 100% guaranteed, although maybe looking better than last week. So given this kind of breaking down of the Kominto, Jiminto alliance, the kind of transition that we're seeing in Japanese domestic politics, what kind of effect do you think that will have on the U.S.-Japan alliance? And do you think that the Trump-Takaichi relationship will maybe harken back to the old days of Trump-Abe? Or will it be more of kind of the Trump-Ishiba frosty relationship?
That's hard to tell, and we can only see when it happens. But I think it is extremely difficult to assume that Takaichi has any choice but to work with Trump. When it comes to, especially Takaichi's position as a conservative, and building up more the security capabilities. I think also the Takaichi's economic policy is very much of the spending policies. She says she wants to be a Japanese Thatcher, but Thatcher made a smaller government and cut off the all the spendings. But is a reverse Thatcher. She is going to spend a lot, and And especially, even though Takaichi will be elected as a prime minister, she will be based on a very, small minorities. I mean, the LDP alone is far less to the majority, and together with Ishin, which is still, missing some seats short for the majority in both houses. So Takaichi has no choice but to, incorporate with demand from opposition, and she has to deal with that in the first place. For her, the dealing with Trump is a secondary issue. I mean, of course, it's important, but she cannot do without the cooperation with the opposition parties. So probably, it depends on the dynamics between the LDP, Takaichi, and the other parties. But most probably, Ishin is to a certain extent, Ishin does not oppose to the Takaichi's position in foreign policy. So I assume that Takaichi will be more confident in dealing with Trump. And I think she consider herself as a successor of Abe.
Right.
So she will try to, follow the footsteps of late Mr. Abe.
So yes, and it'll be interesting to see if they meet. Is she going to hug him like she usually does? But speaking of meetings, one could not have planned it better, because Geoeconomics Summit is happening on October 28th, and this is when Trump will be coming to Tokyo. Supposedly, we'll see. But is there any kind of insight you may have to what the themes of these meetings might be? Now, we don't know if it will be Takaichi who he meets with, or if it'll still be Ishiba or some third person.
Well, the election in the Diet for the Prime Minister will take place in the 21st October, so she will be the Prime Minister, most likely.
Yes.
And there will be, immediately after there are meetings of the Ukraine reconstruction, and then ASEAN-related East Asian Summit, ASEAN +3, ASEAN +6 meetings. And then Trump comes to Japan, and then there will be an APEC meeting in South Korea. So there are a number of international meetings, bundled in the late the last week of the October. So Takaichi has to deal with it. Takaichi doesn't really have the foreign policy experiences. She was the Minister for Internal Affairs and the Communications, and she was the Minister for Economic Security, but she didn't have this international portfolio. I don't think she has any personal connection with Trump or any people in the U.S. administration. So I think it will be somewhat awkward for Takaichi to have a very quick, speed learning about, the current U.S. politics and, all these multilateral meetings. I think this will be very much of the, courtesy call for the first time. But I think that Mr. Trump is going to force, and this, because of the Takaichi will be the sort of a debutante in the foreign policy, the Mr. Trump will take advantage of that and push her into the, implementing the trade deals and the investment deals, and make sure that she will follow whatever that is agreed with Mr. Akazawa in September.
But there's other panels. Economics is not the only topic in the room right now. The next panel, which is going to be parallel to the one on America First, United States, is entitled Strategic Autonomy or Strategic Integration: Defense Capabilities and Defense Industrial Cooperation across the Indo-Pacific. Now here we have another one of these key issues. It might even be more important than economics in the long run, because we're looking at a very kind of highly contested security environment in the Indo-Pacific. Yeah. So perhaps you could just give us an introduction to some of the ideas that this panel will cover between autonomy, integration, and the tension between that.
Yeah, well, The integration does not necessarily mean the integrated deterrence, which has been a buzzword in the last few years. It is also the integration of the supply chains, the manufacturing of the armaments and the defense equipment. I think one of the key issues that this Institute of Geoeconomics focuses on is the defense technology and the defense industry. And I think this is an issue that how can we maintain the sort of stable and reliable supply chain. One of the problems that we discovered through we means the world discovered through the Russian invasion in Ukraine is that the amount of the arms and ammunitions especially is going to run so fast. Even the United States cannot cope with the capacity to produce the shells and artilleries, etc. So I think this is something that we need to think seriously in order to have capabilities and continue the fighting, the warfare. Whereas the Russia, China, North Korea has maintained a very wealthy production capabilities of the armaments. So I think we need to take that into account, and in order to meet these challenges, I think we need to have this not just the strategic autonomy, but the strategic integration of the defense capability and defense industrial cooperation. So we are happy to invite Mr. Takamasa Iba, who is Principal Director of the ATLA, the Acquisition Technology Logistic Agency of Japan, Ministry of Defense, and also Woolley Pike, who is also who is currently the Yonsei University professor, but Mr. Pike is also very much aware of this defense economy. And Tom Coben, who is a research fellow of the United States Study Center of Australia. Australia is a key partner of Japan. Japan has decided, there is an agreement to build the frigate, Mogami class frigate to Australia. So this, again, Australia is a very strong partner for the defense cooperation and the supply chain. Boswinick, who is also a researcher on the CSDS of the Free University of Brussels. She's also another defense expert. So I think we have a very rich panel with people from South Korea, Australia, and Europe to talk about the integration of the defense capabilities and defense supply chain.
So that makes me think of one of the interesting things that the Trump administration appears to not have backtracked on was the Biden administration's idea of moving from this kind of hub and spoke system to more of a minilaterals, these kinds of, I think they call it the lattice work arrangement in the Indo-Pacific. And so I'm curious, where do you see going forward in this age of America first and Chinese, maritime competition, where do you see Japan's role working with these other states? Not just South Korea with the trilateral with the United States, but also with Australia, as you mentioned, and even more recently, the European Union or European powers. How do you see Japan's role in this kind of idea of defense integration?
Well, since the United States taking the America first position and the alliance looks a little bit shaky, I think Japan will play a sort of an anchor role to coordinate with the other like-minded countries, mostly the American allies, to have certain autonomous capabilities of building the defense armaments and also, sort of capabilities without the United States. Of course, none of us, the South Korea, Japan, Australia, can survive without the United States, in the face of the, increasing tension in the with China, and of course particularly in the case of the Taiwan Straits or to aggressive nature of the North Korea. So I think we need to have our own capabilities, but that's not enough. We all need to have the United States all together with us. But the problem is that the commitment of the United States may not as automatic as it used to be. So what we need to do is to build up our own capabilities, to do everything we can to make sure that we are the first line, the first defender of this free, the rule-based free world, and to make sure that we encounter the threats or the environment, security environment in this region. And we do our best, and to once it comes to a sort of the war fighting situation, we do our best to encourage United States to support us. This is what happened in Ukraine. I mean, immediately after Russia started to invade Ukraine, then everyone thought that it will be a week or so that Ukraine can withstand against the Russian aggression. But Ukraine did the best, and with the help from the United States, Ukraine pushed back and maintained its independence. Although there are 20% of the lands are occupied by the Russians at this moment, but still Ukraine hasn't fallen. So I think this is an important point, that you do whatever you can, and then you wait for your friends and allies will help you. So NATO is now investing. There are lots of struggle with the Trump administration, but finally Mr. Trump is supporting Ukraine by exporting the arms, which is paid by the Europeans. But at the end of the day, Mr. Trump gave up to convince Mr. Putin to ceasefire and to build a peace with Ukraine. Mr. Trump understood that Russia has no intention to do that. So now the United States is helping Ukraine. And I think this is a situation that we are facing now. If something happens, then we do everything we can to make sure that the U.S. engagement will be secured, and this lattice work is just basically a part of what we can do.
Mentioning Ukraine, that's a critical example. And as you noted before, including a representative from Belgium, from Europe, on this panel, I think is important because perhaps it's dawning on Trump that you cannot just abstractly separate the theaters of the Indo-Pacific from Europe. With the increasing solidification of the Sino-Russian strategic partnership, and we see some Chinese support by implicitly buying energy, but also explicitly providing some technological items to the Russians. Then you see North Koreans fighting in Ukraine. So in a way, perhaps I'm not sure if they are, but it seems that the two regions cannot fully be disconnected. So on that point, what do you think about Europe's ability, and especially the main powers, France, Britain, to have some kind of a impact in an Indo-Pacific theater should some kind of a conflict over Taiwan, for example, occur?
I think that's a very good question, and we are not expecting that the European, Britain, France, Germany, are helping in a traditional sense of deterrence against China or in North Korea. But I think their participation in this operations and the network of the Defense Alliance creates a certain symbolic weight in this lattice work and the Western Alliance. And also, I think they do have the communication capabilities, the intelligence capabilities to collect the information, and to I think for them it is important to share what's going on in the East Asia, because many European countries depend on economically on China, and also the Taiwan on the semiconductor, for example.
Yeah.
So I think, for them, it is the critical importance for maintaining the stability in the East Asia. So I think it is more political, economic, rather than just the military forces to, it's not like the United States having the bases here in the East Asia and, having the aircraft carrier strike group in, for 24/7.
Right.
That's not the alliance that we expect, but they are also the stakeholders in this region. And once something happens, they have the interest of helping us and to support. And especially, for example, the North Korea is now helping Russia. And North Korea has nothing to do with Ukraine. I mean, of course, they do have the, defense technology, missile technology links. But North Korea, for North Korea, engaging in the war in Ukraine does not necessarily help North Korea for its own security, but they do because they want to learn from what the actual fighting experience, and also knowing how to deal with the drones, drone capabilities. And I think these kind of things are also of importance when it comes to the question of how Europeans will learn from this strategic balancing in East Asia.
Yeah, that's one of the big changes you see in Europe now, with the new push towards defense industrialization, and this is a big sea change that's occurring right now.
Yeah.
And I think that the Indo-Pacific, may not be the primary focus, but nevertheless, I think that it's becoming clear that the two regions are more linked than they are not. And that, kind of as a nice segue into the next panel, right? China's statecraft in Asia.
Right.
Because I think that, this is one of the most, for the next, 5-10 years, this is going to be one of the key features to watch. What do you see China's intentions, I guess? I mean, this is sort of a difficult question, but what are their intentions, or what does the experience of watching, for example, the Ukraine conflict or the trade war with the United States, what do you think that China's actions in this has revealed about its intentions or about possible intentions vis-a-vis the Taiwan Strait, East China Sea, South China Sea, etc.?
It's really hard to tell, and this is why we put this panel session. I think this is one of the most exciting panel because there's a multiple way of understanding what is the intent of China, what is the ambitions, what is the goal. But I think we need to take a special count into the domestic politics in China. Right. I mean, Xi Jinping has grabbed, Xi Jinping is the sort of the top of the pyramid, but that does not necessarily mean that he's almighty. He has a lot of criticisms, and especially this downturn of economy and increasing number of the unemployment in the youth is creating a lot of frustrations among the Chinese people, and there's a lot of disappointment about the Xi Jinping's record on the economy. So although he has been expanding the network of friendship with Putin and Kim Jong-un, in the parade in Beijing. Also, China is playing a sort of a leadership in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or the G20, or there are multiple occasions China is being a leader of the sort of a non-US, non-Western environment. But still, domestically, Xi Jinping has a lot of, vulnerabilities. So whether, he can go on just, expanding its influence in the South China Sea, Taiwan, etc., and would it be, would it contribute to the strengthening the Xi Jinping's position if China plays aggressively in South China Sea or Taiwan, and especially together with trade war with the United States, the Chinese economy is relatively autonomous from the U.S. influences, and there are a lot of leverage of China against the United States, but still, that this trade war is creating the difficult environment for the Chinese manufacturers, especially those who are making the Christmas toys or the Halloween costumes. These are affected by the U.S. market shutting off, and Chinese products is not nowhere to go. So I think this also creates this sort of another frustration, adding up to this frustration of the economic downturn. And the most difficult part of predicting the Chinese position is that we don't know for sure that what will be the exit of the solution for Xi Jinping on all this crisis. Well, it's not as a level of crisis, but that he's facing difficulties. Is he going aggressively abroad to compete against the United States? But so far, it doesn't seem that Xi Jinping's position is very much aggressive. Xi Jinping is taking a strategy of tit for tat. U.S. raised the tariff, then the rare earth export control, etc., is China uses as a retaliatory measures, and then the U.S. escalates, and then the China respond. So this is a kind of tit for tat mechanism, and it is the United States who doesn't really have the stronger leverage against China. So China is in a sort of a much stronger position against the United States. But apart from that, I think China. What we concern more is the Chinese policy towards Taiwan. I think so far Mr. Xi Jinping is trying to take over Taiwan through the peaceful means, which means using the disinformation, cyber attacks, etc., and try to persuade Kuomintang's politicians. But that's not producing the sort of the optimum result for Mr. Xi Jinping. So we don't know for sure what will be the next step. Maybe using some sort of a military capabilities to isolate Taiwan from the global supply chain, which will be very much the problem for every one of us, and possibly China will invade Taiwan. So who knows when? Who knows how? Who knows what kind of measures that China will take? So it's still very difficult to predict, but we do have Dr. Aaron Rabena, who is an expert on China from Philippines Asian Center, and Jaewon Lee, who is economic security expert on the CESFA, the think tank in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of South Korea. But he is also working on the Chinese affairs. And our own Mr. Hotaka Machida will be also in the panel. And these are the three panelists discussing all these Chinese issues.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing their perspective. And you make a great point about the domestic issues. You hear basically two interesting somewhat contradictory narratives about the Chinese economy. In one sense, their advanced manufacturing capability is growing. They're able to try to attempt to rebuild the semiconductor ecosystem within one country, which is basically unheard of. And they have all kinds of other advancements in robotics, EVs, etc. But then at the same time, as we talked about earlier, there's the deflation issue, the involution or price competition that's happening within the economy. There's the debt, the populations. There's many internal crises as well. So you see this narrative of strength and weakness at the same time. And so I think, as you mentioned, one of the big problems will be is if there's a economic crisis or even some kind of political succession crisis in the next 5 to 10 years, will China react to, will weakness cause China to act aggressively on the world stage, or will strength be more closely associated with it? That's really the question.
Yeah, well, who knows? It's an eternal question. But if we look back the history, China will not play on its own weaknesses. China always understood its weakness and tried to mitigate those weaknesses. So probably I don't think that, even though Xi Jinping and the current CPP, the Chinese Communist Party, understood these weaknesses, involution, etc., creates the negativity in economic affairs in China. But I think that will not cause the certain action outside. I mean, they first required to deal with that in the first place, because at the end of the day, what CCP afraid most is the people's uprising, people's dissatisfactions. They want to keep their own, the ruling system. And I think this is why I mentioned about domestic issues in the first place, because at the end of the day, CCP is very much doesn't take the aggressive or extreme measures to get out of this mess.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I guess to wrap up, to bring the final panel, one of the big issues going on in China right now is, will it be able to compete with the United States in terms of advanced technology? Because if you think about three vectors of kind of the geoeconomic competition that's going on, you could say the United States leads in international financial flows and in settlement payments mechanisms, having the reserve currency. China certainly leads in manufacturing, but the most contested space is, in my opinion, the technology space. This is where we're seeing the possibility of two stacks happening: a Chinese-based stack from their technology and software and hardware to a U.S. stack. But right now, I think one of the critical battlefields, especially after January's so-called DeepSeek moment, is the battle over generative AI.
Right.
And so this is our final panel, the Geoeconomics of Gen AI. Middle power strategies on digital sovereignty. And now to go back to kind of what we mentioned in the very beginning, I talked about the U.S.-China trade bifurcation, and perhaps there's a third arrangement that could come into being, EU-CPTPP. So what do the powers besides United States and China, how do they see themselves within this kind of AI competition? Because, if you think about the European Union, they want to have their own innovation capabilities, but so far they've been unable to recognize that kind of technological growth that they aspire to. And Japan, they have their own AI champion, Sakana and others. But within this US-China AI competition, that's no longer really just about tech. It also has geopolitical, economic, and even it goes from the rare earths all the way up to the highest software designing. Yeah. It's a very long chain to the algorithm of the models itself. Where do you think generative AI plays in the larger geopolitical picture? And what can middle powers like Japan or Europe do about this?
Well, that's another big question. Well, first of all, I think AI, no matter who controls AI, who leads the AI technologies, AI is going to be the center of the innovation for the next generations. I think, who has the AI capabilities will change the whole dynamics of the industrial revolutions, industrial growth, and improvement of the productivities, And not just that, it's also having a huge impact on the way in which that people fight in the warfare. So the role of AI is going to be, I don't know if this is to what to compare to, but the emergence of the nuclear technologies or emergence of the aircraft or something that is revolutionary. We are still not sure that how AI will change our society and the economy and the warfare, but it is for sure that it is going to change. So I think who is controlling the heart of the AI is the key question. The heart of AI, there are a couple layers of of that. In the first, it is the material, the minerals, etc., to create the semiconductor, which is the key for the AI performance. And then the semiconductor. The semiconductor is the heart of everything. I mean, if you don't have the GPU 2 nanometer node, then your performance is much less. So I think you will get, you will stay behind of the cutting edge AI technology. And then you have the network of the data center, undersea cable, and all this machines and hardwares. And then you have the software algorithm, and then you have on top of this pyramid the entire AI will emerge. So who is going to control on each layer is going to be a very big question. So far on the material, China has the advantages. The semiconductor, the United States, NVIDIA, Taiwan has advantages. The hardware, which is even, everyone is now building their data center, etc. But I think one of the interesting spot is the Middle East, where because the data center consumes a lot of energy, and you need to be energy rich in order to host the data center. And then the algorithm. This is where people are now talking about the OpenAI, the DeepSeek, etc. So I think every layer there are some sort of a competition, and I think this is where there is huge confrontations, not just between United States and China, but as you said, the United States, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and many others are now involved. The sovereign AI, how to build their, how to be autonomous, how to not to fall, fall behind this progress of the United States and China will do. So yes, the US, China are the two top contenders and the top leaders, but I think there are, countries of the middle power like Japan, United Kingdom, EU, South Korea are now following the top, the top leaders. I think one of the key issue, again, coming back to India, because India produces a lot of, very talented people, and although they might not be the center of the data center or hardware, but when it comes to the question of the algorithm, the American companies depends heavily on the talents from India. What is interesting is that how to build those human resources. The United States used to be the champion of that, but currently, for example, the people who created the DeepSeek are not educated in the United States. They are purely Chinese educated engineers, and I think these engineering spheres are also bifurcated. So I think to foreseeable future, I think there will be a competition continues, and there will be two major spot, or the major centers of the AI development, United States and China. But I think I concern most is this concept of sovereign AI. Everyone wants to have their own sovereign AI, but probably, Japan, EU, South Korea may have them, but the other rest of the world, cannot have the, enough talents and enough capabilities of building their own sovereign AI. So what's going to happen is that the Chinese AI, which is much cheaper, the generative AI provides the services to the basis or platforms of the sovereign AI of, let's say, in Southeast Asia or Latin America.
Right, interesting.
And these will be based on the Chinese AI algorithm. That means that the basis of their mindsets, the way in which that the society works on the AI is to a certain extent controlled by the Chinese values. For example, if you ask the DeepSeek whether Tiananmen Square took place, what happened in July 4th, June 4th of the 1989, then it won't reply. So that kind of things this is an extreme example, but basically, these platforms that China provides may distort the way in which that people use AI or people think through AI. So I think this is another interesting area where, not just focusing on the bilateral, two big giants fighting each other, but how other countries respond to it.
Yeah, when we talk about sovereign AI, kind of reminds me of the idea of like the sovereign internet or the great firewall. I mean, do you think that I totally agree that AI is going to be this revolutionary transformation of the economy of our society, possibly like the airplane internet, something like this. But do you think that there will be opportunities here now for say China or the United States, when countries become dependent on these algorithms? This is going to provide leverage. And do you believe this leverage could be weaponized to deny countries access to certain AI models in exchange for unless they provide concessions?
Well, again, I think you mentioned about internet as a sort of a reference is interesting, because if the internet is not governed by the United States, but the origin is in the United States, and ICANN, which is the governing body of the internet, is based in the Silicon Valley. The question is that, if there is a problem, can you cut off the AI? Can you cut off the internet? Yeah, some countries, for example, during the Arab Spring, Egypt tried to cut off the internet from other, from outside, so that there will be no sharing, the sort of atrocity that, Mubarak did. Or, when something happens, Iran or many countries use these internet as the source of well, not as a punishment, but to protect their own information sphere, and to make sure that they are protected from the foreign intervention. I think this is something close to that. I think you may use the AI, the AI as a weapon, and to force other countries to, threaten other countries by, shutting off the access to the data center or things like that. But again, these are the kind of world that we are living in, that, there is always the sort of alternative ways of accessing through networks. So probably if United States do that, then it automatically shifts the countries to use the Chinese AI, for example. So I think it is not, there is some sort of a deterrence happening. I mean, yes, the United States has the power, but also the China has the power. If there is the United States and China conspire together to cut off everybody else, then that's going to be a very big problem. But if the United States cut off one, then they just shift to China. And the United States doesn't want that, not just for the strategic reasons, but also the commercial reasons. So I don't think there'll be a case that these are, can be weaponized, because it's not indispensable. If there is an alternative, the service is not indispensable.
Right, true.
This is the point that when we talk about the weaponization of economy happens only when you have the indispensability. If there is no other alternatives, then you have the power. The Chinese rare earth mineral is power. China has a power because there is nobody else can do that.
Yeah.
The same amount, same scale of production of the rare earth mineral. So that creates the indispensability, and that's where the China can use the rare earth as a weapon. But when you have the two countries, China and the United States, working on the sort of similar services using AI, they're providing the AI services, then you can't really have the indispensability.
That's a great point. And I think that's going to come across all of these panels at the Geoeconomic Summit. Basically, for us, let's just quickly introduce the people on the panel. Yes.
Yeah, so we have very honored to invite Mr. Yoichi Ida. He is a special advisor to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. And we have Seon Bak, who is a Hanyang University professor. Assistant professor, but he's also very much of the key person in Korea about AI. And Jonathan Ansetti, who is a young but very active person in the CSDS, which is a think tank in the Free University of Brussels. And Kosuke Saito, it's our own researchers on the Emerging Technology Group and the IOG. So we do have a very, interesting person and different perspective on AI.
Yes, it's going to be another great panel. There's a great lineup here, and we've spoken for just about an hour now. And think of all the topics that we've covered. We can only imagine what these experts will bring for a whole day's event.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate that we cannot broadcast everything, but we do have the broadcasting of the keynote speech of Ken Weinstein. Probably that Ken Weinstein is the Japan chair of the Hudson Institute, but also he was about to be the ambassador to Japan during the first Trump administration. And of course, he has a lot of networks in Japan as well as in the United States. And he probably is the one who knows the most about the people working in the White House today. And I'm also therefore excited to see Ken Weinstein and Ken Jimbo, so double Ken fireside chat and after the keynote speech. And also I'm very looking forward to have Wendy Cutler, Miss Wendy Cutler, who is a good friend of mine, and she was the deputy assistant secretary of.
Deputy Secretary, right?
Deputy Secretary, yes, sorry. So Deputy Secretary of State, and she was also worked in USTR, so she knows very much of the trade negotiations, and she was very much of the outspoken person about the current Trump administration, and she's not she served in a Democratic administration, but she also had a very good understanding of Trump policy. So I think again this whole lineup of the discussion with those guests is reflecting on the changing dynamics of statecraft. And the afternoon fireside chat, we are very happy to have Mr. Tarun Chabra, who was the sort of a central person of the semiconductor export control, the AI diffusion rules. He was the architect of the statecraft of the Biden administration in NSC. And also David Weiss, who is also is taking over the Tarun's position, but he was unfortunately fired by Trump administration because of this Laura rumor kind of intervention, etc. So it was, but he is also equally competent with Tarun, and David is also. We are looking forward to have both, the Biden administration, the tech guru, and Trump administration tech guru together in the same fire chat, and I'm very happy to host it. So looking forward to it.
So this is one of the great benefits of the Geoeconomic Summit. Again, what we just discussed, those are all going to be live streamed beginning 9 a.m. on October 28th. So please tune in right here to the IOG YouTube page, presuming the Americans don't cut off the internet. And then you'll be broadcasting live until 2 p.m. Japan time. So please do tune in. And thank you again to Professor Suzuki. It's been great to discuss. And if you'd like to know more, please visit the Institute of Geoeconomics.org. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
アメリカみたいな念頭にその一方的措置は反対と言ってるだけで、じゃあその代わりにどうするのかっていうところは中国自身もよく分かってないということなんじゃないのかなと思いますし、